Hello and welcome to the birth of a new dimension. My name is Aurora, and the birth that we are giving birth to, the dimension that we are giving birth to, is a dimension that is made out of the combination of spirit, or we could replace the word spirit with energy, or we could replace the word energy with pure consciousness or pure information, and combining that realm with the realm of physical matter. Because up until this point, we have been laboring under the delusion that there is an actual separation between the worlds of pure energy and the worlds of solid matter. You know, when we use our five senses to touch a solid object, that is what I am defining as matter. And just as we have been installed with the narrative fiction that there is a separation, a membrane or a boundary between oneself as an individual, this is the ego. The ego is a narrative fiction that makes a distinction between you as an individual from the context that we are all a part of. So that context is the ocean of consciousness. And I joke on here all the time that we are not merely swimming around in our own private kiddie pools of our minds. That's a huge delusion. We are absolutely connected to an ocean of consciousness. And what we think and what we do with our minds affects everyone else that's here in the ocean. I also call it the symphony. Wait, I should move over to my piano here. We're in the symphony of consciousness. This is the symphony of life, because pretty much in order to achieve life, you have to audition. You have to get into the band. The band is the world of the physical matter, the material plane that we are all experiencing. So each one of us, in order to have these bodies, we had to audition. That's called being conceived. It's called conceiving a body and gestating it in the womb and creating a container for our consciousness to be able to come into the physical level of matter and experience it. In order to do that, each one of us had to figure out how to arrange the cellular structure of our body, how to grow a neurological system, how to transfer our consciousness into that neurological system. And once you get born, then it's the question of, how do I make these arms and legs move? How do I make this mouth move? How do I make this brain work? There's a steep learning curve on all of this. So we have come here with our instruments, and our instruments are our bodies. And we have to learn how to play our instruments correctly. If we play them well, then we continue to be alive. And if we do not play our instruments well, if we don't make beautiful music like this, those are happy cells. They're all organized and all of their sound waves are harmonically arranged. That means that the perfect circles of their sound waves nest together in a very pretty way, kind of like the paintings that I paint. But if we don't have our cellular structure in this beautiful harmonic structure, if we make it sound ugly like this, cover your ears again, then what we have is death. And death I am defining as hitting this membrane that is the boundary of the time field. That the time field is shaped like a vortex, and I draw these pictures all the time, and I also share them as little sculptures. And the best way that you can see pictures and sculptures, I would say check out my my website. It's flyingrainbowlasagna.com, lasagna with an E on the end. And from there, you can easily link up with all of my YouTube videos. I have extensive YouTube videos because although I love having my radio show here and I love the flapping of my moving mouth parts as a defiant gesture to this hacked human operating system, like we're going to talk about lasagna, I really feel like what you're able to ingest from my voice here on the radio is only a portion of the nutrition available. So please use your eyeballs, check out my work. It's very visual, and I think it will help to explain, because it's like a map. It's like a visual map of how our time body is shaped, and knowing what it is shaped like empowers each one of us. Oh, let me speak to that very briefly. I've had a couple of people comment on YouTube videos that I have about whether it is advisable to remove one's chakras, and whether the chakra system or system of energy centers that I draw and paint and teach about is a control system. And I cannot wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that it is a inherent control system and that you must get rid of it completely to be free. No, no, no. So I'm just going to say this out here. I really feel that the chakra system of our body is a way of understanding the organization of our non-physical structures, our thoughts, our emotions, and our flight through time, and that it is not disempowering to know that that area of our awareness has a structure to it. It's just like saying, this music has a structure. Now, you can play by ear. There's nothing wrong with playing by ear, and there have been some extraordinary musicians that pretty much played by ear and began their careers in that way, and then later, learned to express themselves by translating their music onto the musical staff. But if we look at, the music of Jimi Hendrix, a lot of his chords and chord structure and everything like that, it is very challenging to even represent that as musical notation type of music. So we understand that there is a benefit to learning the musical notation, because then you get a common language with all of the other musicians. If I say to you, tap, 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 musicians, we're about to start a song and the first note is going to be a C. That's a C. Then everyone who knows how to read music is happy and comfortable because they've got the map, they've got the guidance, they know what is the right note that we're going to play. And if you know music theory, then you know, oh, this C note, it fits together really nicely with this E note and sounds nice and harmonic and pretty together. And so the more music theory that one learns, the easier it is to correctly anticipate what the next note of the chord is going to be and play along with the rest of the symphony. So I'm trying to say to you that, in my own experience of being a musician, I started out like an amorphous person that did not understand music theory, and I just played by ear. And there were certain songs that I could figure out and that I could play, and there were some songs that were so complex that no matter how much I tried, I couldn't decipher or analyze just with my ear what was going on. And I learned that if I wanted to really step up my levels of expertise and my ability to play more, that I was going to have to actually learn the system. And the system, to me, was not disempowering, and it did not feel like a constraint. When I learned about the musical notes, and what I did was I associate the musical notes with the colors of the rainbow. So if we begin with C as being red, we go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And then the next one would be red again, or white light. And that visualization helped me to understand the structure of music. And then I started to be able to play songs that were more complex and even express myself and write down the songs and melodies that I was coming up with as more than just a record. Like, I could certainly record what I was creating melodically, but now I found that I could say, oh, I can write down, these are the notes that I'm creating in my own music. So all of that in order to tell you, in my own personal experience, I have embraced music theory, and I don't find it to inhibit my own personal expression at all. I found that the more that I learned about it, the better my own playing became, and the more easily I could understand and relate to and play along with the music of others. So now let's use that understanding of music as a template for understanding for the idea of the chakra system, that we are in a giant symphony of life with many, many different types of musicians. Brief pause. So there are all these different types of musicians. There is microbial life, the microbiome. You and I, as organic multicellular macroscopic beings, would not be able to be alive, our lives would not be sustained if it were not for the microbial realm. So a lot of humans are afraid of little tiny bugs. They think everything is a pathogen. However, we do not contain pathogens. We contain benevolent co-creators. These are the musicians that are playing music inside of us, in our digestive tract, that make it possible for us to digest our food. If we didn't have these probiotic, beneficial little bacteria that live in our bodies, if we didn't have that, then we would not be able to access the micronutrients in our food, that we're literally in this symbiotic partnership where we say to like 3 to 5 trillion tiny microorganisms, hey, live in my intestines, and I'm going to eat this amount of food every day, and I'm going to expose you to it, and you get to eat as much of it as you want. And in exchange, what I'm going to need is for you to unlock these nutrients so I can actually access them. And that is like saying, you're going to play this note, and I'm going to play this note. And it's going to sound like beautiful music together. And this is also, we have tons of microorganisms and bacteria that are beneficial that live on the surface of our skin. And if they're in good balance, then they help to prevent us from getting skin infections or pathological bacteria, let's say encampments. The good bacteria fight off the bad bacteria. So we would not want to sterilize our skin completely, because that would leave us very vulnerable to the harmful pathogens. And the same battle or challenge or tensegrity system, a system of integrity that is based on tension, dynamic tension, is experienced in the animal realm and also in the plant realm. That plants are also experiencing this beneficial partnership with microorganisms. Plants would not be able to access little tiny things like calcium and magnesium and copper and all the stuff that's in the soil if it were not for these microorganisms at the level of the root structure, digesting tiny little particles of minerals and making it available for the roots of the plants. And on the leaves of the plants are not sterile things, they are not machinery. They're also coated with beneficial bacteria, the same type of beneficial bacteria that coat our own skin. So if you want to have a healthy garden, what you do, you don't spray your garden with a bunch of chemicals to sanitize it and kill all of the bacteria and insect life possible. What you do is you inoculate your garden. Just like you drink kombucha for your belly, you can create beneficial compost teas that you spray on the leaves of your garden and thereby keep up the beneficial bacterial count that keeps down the pathogenic bacterial count. And all of this, I'm trying to tell you, we're in a partnership, we're in a symphony of life in order to make all of this happen. The microbial realm unlocks the mineral realm. And the mineral realm, this is the consciousness that is at the level of the molecular level. It is not mechanical, although they remind me of little mechanisms in their behavior, in the way that they work. So I'm trying to get across the idea that molecules and molecular behavior is also affected by or guided by consciousness. That if we get down to this tiny microscopic level, even smaller than a one-celled organism, and we go into the realm of molecules and molecular chemistry, that the behavior being exhibited by molecules at that level is actually evidence of consciousness, that preferences are exhibited and behavior is exhibited, and that this is a type of intelligence. So we, as macroscopic multicellular organisms on the level of the anthropomorphic level, we have to learn to integrate with microbes. We have to learn to integrate with minerals. Minerals are part of our own consciousness, and minerals are part of the chemical signaling system that we use within our own body to transfer ideas along the nerves of our body. It's the neurotransmitters. So that all happens on a chemical level. So now we're starting to see how, in order to support our own higher dimensional levels of consciousness on a macroscopic level, we have to be friends with a bunch of tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic minerals and make sure that they're all behaving correctly within our body. This is becoming a partner with life. This is becoming a good musician in the symphony of life. And I brought everybody down to like the tiny, tiny, tiny molecular level. Now let's expand in scale and go up the ladder to one-celled organisms, now a collection of many one-celled organisms into a multicellular organism. Now let's look at the planet herself. The planet is a her, it's a she, it's a person. We are living on the surface, and our fates are intertwined with this big, big, big giant organism that is made up of all of these other organisms. And it's all a beautiful symphony. And the planet is really one of the band leaders. She is really trying to organize all of the harmonic structure of humanity and the microbiome and the molecular realm and everything else that is going on here. Think about weather patterns and the patterns of magma that flow around our planet. All of the metabolic systems that make our planet go. That's all part of our experience at being part of this giant symphony. And Earth is not sitting in an unconnected state or in a disconnected state amidst the rest of life. There's all of these other influences that are basically the other planets and the stellar network. So now we're starting to understand that we're submerged within this giant symphony that involves not only life on our planet, but consciousness and life throughout the entire cosmos. And as I'm saying this, I'm recognizing I still have to speak to this. So, I'm a bit far into this broadcast to introduce myself, but to anyone who is new to this broadcast, and it's the first time you're tuning in, I usually say, hi, I'm Aurora, and I'm a galactic walk-in. And lately I've been changing my vocabulary term a little bit and saying I'm a galactic abstraction, because I notice that whatever term is used in these, these community of seekers or questers or people that are looking for something new. All of these words are getting hijacked. So even the word ascension, I'm now finding if I use that word, that some people are like, uh-oh, red flag, like we're using the word ascension here. So to characterize when I say that I'm a walk-in, first of all, this is consensual. I'm not any kind of body snatcher. I'm not any kind of evil interloper or like a carpetbagger or someone who's an opportunist. That's the word. Like a higher dimensional opportunist who is like, oh, look, a person in vulnerability. I'm going to swoop down and steal their body and do what I want with it. No, no, no. It wasn't like that at all. So I must correctly characterize this. So, and where I'm coming from, I'm in abstraction and I'm coming from a macroscopic scale. So that is what is really inspiring me to do this particular recording today. I wanted to speak a little bit more about where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a larger scale, a macroscopic scale. So when we are not in this particular body, like the anthropomorphic form that has one face and two arms and two legs, we can dilate our identity and we can exist at a larger scale. So if inside of your body, if individuated neurons all get together in order to make the music that we call your thoughts, you thinking, the stellar network is another form of neurology, and it's on a macroscopic scale. And when all of the stars are thinking together or making music together, it is the music that is the consciousness of a higher dimensional entity. So that is where I am coming from. I'm coming from a different scale of consciousness. And the way that I came into this particular body is the oscillation that I name the flying rainbow lasagna. So I am also aware now. You can tell I'm a cultural outsider because I chose that name. And if anybody hears that name, it's such an oddity that some people are immediately dismissive. It's a strange word. It has trouble even fitting into people's ear holes at times. So I'm finding that I have to find effective ways to explain and try to get past really the language filter. It's hacked operating system to get past language using these visualizations and animations and paintings and sculptures and diagrams. Yes, if I were a real cutthroat marketer, if I were really a profiteer, if I really were a carpetbagger, I would be like, oh, I had better name this something that will be easily marketable for the entrepreneurial capitalistic system on Earth. And clearly, that's not my motivation. So yes, I spontaneously named it the Flying Rainbow Lasagna in the moment of creation, which was also a moment of great duress, a very chaotic or difficult time when I was in the process of coming into this body, and it was a huge battle of consciousness where the previous occupant had been killed, and she wasn't just killed like through natural causes, she was murdered. So there were adversaries, there was I guess I would have to characterize it as a battle, even though I try to say we're giving birth right now. Like we're not just fighting an endless war, but what I experienced was definitely, similar to being in a battle. And that my response to that was to create the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And when I say my response, that is now me identifying from this other scale, from this larger scale, the network that is a larger entity, and saying that perceiving what was happening in this particular physical body with this particular individual was not cool. And it was not according to the music of the cosmos. And it broke a lot of cosmic laws. Cosmic laws are like the laws of physics. These are not laws that we negotiate over or wrangle over or have amendments and riders and that people wearing powdered wigs write them out with quill pens. These are not that type of laws. These are laws that are laws of behavior, laws of physics, laws of experience. When I say physics, it's like the laws that govern the behavior of the material world at the macroscopic level. And also think about quantum physics, the subatomic level, laws about observership and how the cosmos is structured and behaves. And these are laws that we cannot negotiate with. It doesn't matter how slick your argument is. If you're on the surface of Earth, we're experiencing something that is defined as gravity. You can't negotiate with gravity. You can't be like, oh, I want my gravitational pull to be, slightly less than others, or that just doesn't work. It is a law and it is applied equally everywhere to all of the inhabitants of this planet. So the laws that we are speaking about are laws of consciousness. And some of these basic laws have to do with ethics. Well, let's say the ethical structure that I follow comes out of understanding the foundation of the laws. Like if you understand gravity, what comes up must come down, then you will structure your ethical behavior based upon that. So I understand on a profound level the idea that what you send out comes back to you, and it comes back to you instantaneously, and it comes back to you amplified, and that this is part of the learning structure of the cosmos. So if you know that on a profound level, then what you send out, you will be choosing the things that you will be receiving. If you're self-destructive, you can send out all of the harm and intent for harm that you want to. If you want to destroy your own self, then you can think thoughts and send out intentions of killing and murdering and diminishing the vitality of other people, or taking their life force energy away, or taking their food away, or whatever, filling them with pathogens or whatever it is. If you are sending that out as a mental intention or a consciousness broadcast, then the law of the cosmos states that all of that will be instantaneously reflected back to you, and you will instead experience the things that you have sent out to others. So this speaks to my own value system in coming here, because some of those same people that are talking about, oh, you got to remove your chakras in order to be free, they have cast aspersions upon my motivations for being in the body here and sharing the concepts of having energy centers and what they're shaped like and how they behave, and also the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna. So I am so clear on this. And if you're a long-time listener, first of all, thank you for being a long-time listener and tuning in every week. And also you understand I emphasize this every time. My value system is one of unconditional love. That means acceptance. Unconditional love means I accept your baseline state. I don't require that you change just for my convenience. Even if you're a totally evil being, in a state of unconditional love, I look at you and I say, yes, you are a totally evil being, and that's who and what you are. So the state of unconditional love means if I see someone that is evil or being that is a being of pure entropy, then I say, that's what you are. I'm not going to try to make you any different. You're a being like this. And then what do we do with you in light of that? So that's why I've created the flying rainbow lasagna, and that's why I have described in detail the idea of taking away energy from these beings and sending them into a state of unity consciousness via total entropy. And that's what it is when you bring a piece of matter into a totally motionless state. This is taking away energy from it, because heat is motion, molecular motion. If we take away the energy of the molecules, we take away the molecular motion, we take away the heat, and we make it very cold. And this is cold beyond even the cold of our physical senses. If we make it so cold that it's almost at 0 degrees Kelvin, almost at absolute zero, all of those molecules and atoms start to overlap. They slow down and they overlap and they begin to act as if they are one atom. Those beings are achieving unity consciousness through a state of total entropy. And it's also like saying we are in a refinery. Our cosmos is a refinery. And just like, you have gold miners, the old-fashioned gold miners that would pan for gold, and they would swirl around the water, and they would want to keep the gold but get rid of all of the other sand and grit and irrelevancies. That is what we are experiencing in the cosmos. We are here in order to refine out the gold, or the most beautiful, uncorruptible levels of our consciousness. And all of the sand and grit and irrelevancies, those are not meant to be saved forever. Like the gold, the eternal, immortal aspects of our consciousness are saved. It's like saving a term paper. I wrote my homework, I saved my term paper, and then I handed it into the cosmos. What do we do with all of the mistakes? Do I want to immortalize my mistakes if I spelled a word wrong? Do I want to immortalize that and send that in to the professor? No, of course not. I want to catch all of those mistakes and I want to rectify them. And what do I do with all of those mistakes? Well, if it's a term paper, I erase them. And if it is a consciousness moving through time, how do we erase a consciousness moving through time? We take away its energy so that it can't move through time anymore. That's what it means to become totally frozen. That's what it means to become a being of pure entropy, pure loss of energy, that you no longer have movement. You don't even move through time. It is a frozen being. And that's what the membrane of death is supposed to be. It's supposed to be not not a place where there is an extensive civilization that has been in existence for more than 10,000 years, where there's energy and movement and trade and barter and all of that type of stuff. No, no, no. It's supposed to be a totally inert, frozen place where there is darkness or no energy, or, it's like saying if we had perfect veins and arteries in the metabolism of a body, there would be no blockages and the blood would flow very easily. So if the membranes of death were completely cleared, these interstices, then the energy would flow through those areas very easily. However, there have been beings that have been occupying the interstices for longer than what is known as recorded human history. So I understand the skepticism that I face in coming here, because humanity has been horribly traumatized, profoundly affected when I start to share these ideas that are based in the rainbow. Some people even have said to me, "Oh, Aurora, the rainbow is a control system. It's all based on Saturn and the 7 layers of whatever." And I'm trying to tell you in every single way that I possibly can that my intentions when I come here are based in unconditional love and freedom. And freedom is a totality state. It is not something where I can say, "Oh yes, this segment of society is free, but then the rest of everyone else is enslaved." That's not freedom. And in the cosmos, like on the grand galactic scale, there is a huge problem, because there is not freedom here in this little bubble known as Earth. That if I'm a great musician at the galactic scale and we want to play music like this and we're all awesome musicians jamming together on that level, but then there's this ugly music that's going on in the background that's down in the level of Earth. And we can't enjoy our beautiful freedom at this level because it's going on all the time in the background. I'm sorry to hurt your ears. I should have warned you about that. So yes, that is my motivation for being here. The best, most ethical way to improve something is not by standing outside of the system and trying to wave your magic wand and poof, do something. That I understand is why people would face a lot of skepticism. They would say, "Oh, someone outside of this system is trying to impose their willpower on us." Well, who do you think you are to do that? Well, the answer is, I'm actually now an occupant of this system. It's like saying, if I want to vote in the United States elections, that's easy. Well, you know how you do that? You go to the United States, you become a citizen, and then you get the right to vote, and then you get a vote, and so does everyone else. So this is essentially what I did. I got a body by vibrating the DNA structure of this formerly, human female body into a structure called the flying rainbow lasagna. I say formerly human female. I was kind of hesitating at using that because I'm still a human female. However, I also have changed. We can redefine what it is to be human, because for a very long time, humanity was defined as just the physical layer with some emotions and some intellect on top of that, and without higher faculties. And to that definition of what human is, once a human activates their higher faculties, then they become superhuman. But what I'd like to say is that all of us are superhumans. That is our birthright. We are made to encompass all of these notes, from the physical to the mammalian emotions to the conscious intellect to unconditional love, and then up from there is truth and the capacity to communicate truth. Insight, which is pure understanding, not clothed with verbalized words. And then that highest level note within our own individual octave as a human is our connection to the divine, or something that is even higher than us. And we add all of those notes up. That's what we get. We get this white light of consciousness, or the overlapping of all of our light waves through additive color mixing. We come up with this white light, and that's our consciousness emanation from the source of consciousness, or the zeroth dimension. So we're supposed to be all of those notes, but for a long time, most of recorded human history, humanity has been defined by only the lower section of the physicality and mammalian denser emotions and intellect. So I'm trying to tell everyone we're all superhumans. But most people, if I said, "Hey, is it a normal thing to be able to see the future?" Most people right now would say, no, that's a superhuman thing, because most people are still identifying just with their first 3 layers of density and not awakening the higher faculties. So when one awakens the higher faculties, one begins to perceive time. And this is empowering. So like I'm telling you, I understand that y'all are skeptics. You're applying your skepticism. That is good. Be skeptical. Have an energetic immune system that only lets in concepts that are appropriate. However, please understand that getting rid of your chakras, this would be like poking at your eyeballs, being like, oh, these eyeballs are so constraining and I'm such a slave because I have eyeballs that I can see with. I'd better poke them out so that I am not vulnerable to having energy enter my mind through visualization. And I better poke out my ears too at the same time. I better flay myself and get rid of all of my tactile sensations. Like, why don't I get rid of all of my organs too? That is the equivalent of getting rid of your chakras. So it is definitely ill-advised. And again, I'm not some kind of a slave taker that is here to mislead everyone and say, oh yes, like I'm pretending that I'm a fiend right now. I'm making fiendish hand gestures, rubbing my hands together. Oh yes, I'm going to come to earth and I'm going to tell everyone information about how they have their chakras so that they can be disempowered. And then I'm going to take over their bodies in some way. No, that's not it. What has actually happened over the past 10,000 years is humanity has been kept in the dark or ignorant or uninformed about your higher faculties or one's higher faculties and their function. And this is exactly the same as when females were kept uninformed and disempowered about aspects of their own reproductive system, so that females were being impregnated, but they didn't know what made the impregnation and conception happen. They didn't know how to take care of themselves during pregnancy, and they didn't know how to have healthy children, and then they didn't know how to stop having babies when they have had enough healthy children and they already have enough to take care of. So this is the experience of humanity. Humanity is constantly giving birth to concepts and experiences and events in reality. The things that happen to us each day and each moment of each day are not random, and they are not arbitrary, and we are not victims of the time field. That, like the idea of genetic fatalism. It's written in my genes and I have no control over it, and therefore, if something is in your genes, you're going to get that disease or you're going to have that experience. No. Epigenetics states that through controlling our minds or cultivating our emotions, we can have an influence on the expression of our genes. Just because you have something as a potential doesn't mean it has to be expressed as an experience. So too is it with the time field, that we have all of these potential experiences, like the song of our life, the different things that we can possibly play, but we don't have to play all of those songs. As we begin to awaken our higher faculties, we get to choose which notes we play and which songs we play. And if you don't like that song, you're like, that's a boring song, or I hate those notes, the notes of disease. If you hate the notes of cancer and you don't want that to happen in your body, you don't have to play those notes. So clearly, coming from my value system, if I say to you, here's the flying rainbow lasagna, it's first of all, learn about your chakras and then become a genetic virtuoso and transform your chakras into a higher flying rainbow lasagna energy state. And in doing so, you can kick out all of the genetic invaders, transform so that you don't have to get diseases like cancer or other diseases that might be based in genetics and emotions. Like, clearly that is not me trying to enslave you or trying to harm you or degrade your consciousness or manipulate you in a negative way. This is all about the ethics. What am I sending out? Because I know that all of that is going to be reflected back to me. So I am sending out love. And love is not merely an airy-fairy ideal. It's not merely like a sense of affection. If I want to hug and kiss someone, it's not really that at all. Because I love all of you guys, but I don't necessarily want to hug and kiss all of you. It is a sense of an energetic tone that is an equal giving and an equal receiving. So we can love the cosmos by being embedded in time and moving at exactly the right rate. I, for example, am loving the cosmos if I am moving at exactly 1 moment per moment. If I'm not grasping at the future and I'm not clinging to the past, like if I'm Pac-Man, like that old video game, and I'm just eating one little dot at a time and just focusing on this dot right now and then the next dot and then the next dot, and I'm not trying to project my mind into, 5 days from now what dots I'm going to eat. And I'm not trying to think about the past 5 days ago, how many dots I ate back then. I'm focusing all of my attention and awareness on this dot right now. Technically, that is lovemaking with the cosmos. And it makes your energy body make tone. And it's just like singing, but it's not a singing with your larynx, so other humans might not hear it, but the time field hears it. And that is part of becoming a beautiful musician in the time field. So meditation and mindfulness is part of cultivating and tuning your own individual instrument. There are tons of schools of meditation. So I'm happy to say I don't have to, create a whole video explanation or anything like that about how to meditate. There are all sorts of different ways to do it. And if you sit down in meditation and you create that meditative mind state, then when you open your eyes and you stand up and you come back into the world, you can bring that meditative state into mindfulness, which would be like when I'm playing the piano, I'm not sitting cross-legged with my eyes closed. I'm sitting at my piano and I'm playing, but I'm mindful. That means I'm focusing all of my attention on the moment now. And when you're a musician, you really have to do that, because in order to make your fingers and your arms and your mouth and everything move and, make music and sound good and everything, you can't be anticipating, I'm going to have to play this in a little while. Like, I'm going to have to play these notes a little ways down the road. As a musician, you got to focus on what your fingers are doing right now. These notes are what I'm playing right now. And then when it's time for me to play this note up here or this note up here, that I will be thinking about that at that time. So that's what it is. Ask your GPS, your God positioning system, to just give you the guidance that you need for this moment right now, not for days, weeks, months, or years ahead in the future. And also, do not cling to the past. So, and this is also, some people think it's necessary to do all of the dirty laundry of their whole entire life before they get to have a good day. And that's not truthful, and it's also not the place that we're at. We are literally at the moment of giving birth into a new dimension, and the new dimension is created by the combination of spirit and matter coming together. If we had to do all of the dirty laundry, emotional laundry of our whole entire life existence before we are allowed to do this, it would be a long time, many decades, maybe even a lifetime before we're allowed to finally give birth and have this transformation of consciousness and awareness and experience of the physical realm. So basically, if you wanted to do all of the dirty laundry, like underpants by underpants, if you want to wash them all out by hand in the sink, looking at every single stain, scrubbing at every single thing, the time to start would have been like 50 years ago. You need a couple of decades to go through if you're going to do that. So it's not appropriate for us at this moment to say, in order to be free, what we need to do is go back into our own emotional backlog of a lifetime and go through every single possible thing that happened that harmed us or harmed others and scrub it all out and then come out the other side and finally be ready to live in joy and peace and balance and, emotional harmony. No, because we don't have the time for that. We have to do a big, giant size economy industrial wash. Like I'm thinking of those washers that they have in like a hotel or in a giant industrial laundromat. You can put a lot of laundry into there. It gets very hot. It spins around very effectively and it washes everything out. That is essentially what we are doing right now. Because giving birth, this is entering with our consciousness into a new level of reality where our minds paint our experience. And so we got to do inner house cleaning. You got to clean up what's inside, because if you're coming from a very wounded place and you have a lot of trauma and a lot of undigested emotional experiences, that will definitely color your expectations of the future and of what you can create and what you can expect. And a lot of this is about trauma. If a person has been traumatized, if you had a bad car accident or if you were raped or if you got shot or something like that, then you had that experience, and there's the tendency to project an expectation of a repeat experience. Like, oh, when next time you get into your car and you drive around that corner, you think, oh, maybe I'm going to have a car accident again. And that's just because you've had that. And so you need to have the corrective experience where you drive around that corner enough times and you realize, hey, I didn't get smashed into this time. Maybe everything's going to be okay. So we as a planet, we were horribly mind raped over 10,000 years ago. And that trauma is part of what needs to be healed in the big giant industrial wash, because a lot of people still expect a repeat trauma. People think, oh, we're going to have a cataclysm. We're going to have a meteor or an asteroid or planet Nibiru or some other cataclysm, some destabilization rather of the poles of, Earth's magnetosphere that a lot of people are ready for and prepared for. The repeat trauma, another invasion, another catastrophe. And I'm here to tell you that What we can experience instead is the corrective experience. Instead of a sudden reduction in our levels of consciousness and in our levels of like what we can do, our freedom and our capacity to do what we want to do with our minds. We lost a lot very suddenly when our planet was invaded. It's called the fall of consciousness, the fall from grace. And none of it wasn't your fault, it wasn't our fault. No, none of this blame the victim nonsense. It was, however, a profound and very sudden loss. What if we can have the corrective experience, which is a profound and sudden gain or rectification? And I mean rectification, that doesn't just mean returning to neutral. It's not like, if we lost 10 units of energy, then we can gain 10 units of energy and then just be right back where we were before we got, smashed down. We can actually improve from where we were before we had this experience. So that is the corrective experience, and that is the healing or rectification of the entire time field. I said you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool, you're connected to the larger time field. And that if all of the music of the cosmos is trying to play some nice, beautiful music, but that there's this little area of lack of freedom that sounds really ugly, when we heal this planet, when we heal our individual circumstances, our cultural circumstances, our planetary circumstances, we reintegrate these areas of timelines that have been perturbed and twisted around and tangled up in knots. They get combed out and all of a sudden look really beautiful, and they integrate with all of the other life that is out there. So I had to speak to this too, because I'm here on Earth, and I know that there are some people that don't even recognize that there is life somewhere other than Earth. That is almost incomprehensible to me. That's why I didn't even realize I have to tell people about this. But yes, this is not the only place in the entire cosmos that contains what we would call life or consciousness. And so first, what we need to do, let me just save my work. What we need to do on this planet is begin to understand and integrate and respect the life that is microbial life and mineral life or molecular life and macroscopic life. So truly, if humans respected molecular life, we would not do a lot of chemical processes that are highly disruptive to the behavior of molecules. And if we respected planetary life on this huge macroscopic level, humanity would not do a lot of the infrastructure and pollution that it has been doing for a long time, that humans have been degrading the flow of energy and metabolism of energy of the entire planet. And I'm not just talking about, if there's whatever, you make a coal-fired power plant and pollution smoke goes up into the atmosphere. That's only part of it. I'm also speaking about what some people call the ley lines. These are like the natural energetic meridians or metabolism where energy flows around the body of the planet. And that humans have done a great amount of disruption of those natural flowing lines of energy, not just by building cities in a haphazard or unconscious way, but also by literally co-opting those energy centers and building death cult negativity buildings or buildings that are about promoting the belief system that suffering and death are noble and necessary. That's like if on my body, if a bunch of little yeasts and microorganisms and, like one-celled organisms that live on my skin, if they all got together and went to my belly button every Sunday morning and sang songs about how we all had to die, that's not very good. And I would actually rather prefer if all these little lovely microorganisms would celebrate the body that they're living on and, sing songs about how much they love my earlobe or how much they love to eat the little flakes of my epidermis and how much I sustain them. That's more along the lines of how indigenous cultures appreciated our planet. That they would go to power centers and they would appreciate the energy that makes crops grow, the energy that makes animals be alive, the energy that makes it rain and sustains us with clean water from the sky. That this is a very different approach. And so we can see that ancient, undiluted approach became changed and diminished and has literally diminished the health and vitality of our entire planet because we have a pathogenic outbreak every Sunday morning of people singing songs about how necessary it is for all of us to die and for the planet to die. Because that's definitely one of the most disturbing things that I perceived when I came here into this body and started to analyze this culture. I started to recognize that there's a huge program that is this idea of the necessity of death and the inevitability of death, and that's how you get out of here. And I have to tell everybody that that is not truthful. If you follow that GPS, then you will hit the membrane of death and you won't get out of here and you won't be free. So again, the irony of ironies that someone would try to say that I'm giving you the map of your chakra system and the flying rainbow lasagna tool so that you can transcend these limitations, but they are so skeptical because of their PTSD from planetary rape that they can't even listen to this coming from me, and they can't even apply these tools to their own experience. So that is, that's a bit disheartening. I wish that that person would actually listen, but I understand. It's like if you were fed food that was tainted with poison many, many times. And then I make you a beautiful plate of lasagna and I bring it over to you and I'm like, hey, this is the lasagna. It's actually going to nourish your body and make your tummy feel a lot better. And someone sniffs at it and they're like, no, this is more poison. I can't eat this. And I'm like, oh man, like I just made this lasagna for you. I really wish you would just eat it. So I understand where people are coming from, and I hope that you understand where I am coming from. So I try with every thing that I do, if it is a broadcast here on the radio, or if it is a video, if it's a personal interaction, like with people sending me an email or a private message, or if I am making music or singing or in any way that I'm using my voice, all of these, everything that I am here for is I'm always intending unconditional love and cultivating and promoting freedom. So we can also get into the vagaries of freedom. Freedom does not mean that you're allowed to just willy-nilly kill whoever you want to do or do whatever you want to do. That's like, freedom does not mean that you can just be a person with big giant feet and walk around squashing a bunch of organisms with your big giant feet. Freedom means if you have big giant feet and there are other organisms, like, on the garden where I'm walking around, you have to be mindful about where you place your feet so that you don't squash a bunch of other things. So this is the idea in human history on the surface of Earth. In the 1500s, we had the exploration/invasion of the people who were inhabitants of the European continent coming to the continents of North and South America. And due to many different cultural diversions of these two different cultures, it was a barbarian expression of values. The barbarian value system says only the strong shall survive and to the victor go the spoils. Basically, might makes right. So if a bunch of people that live on one continent and they've developed immunity to diseases like smallpox because they kept domesticated animals and lived close to them and were exposed to cowpox, if those beings decide to pile themselves into a wooden ship and sail across the ocean and then pile out and infect all of the people on another continent, in human history that is considered like, oh, well, all's fair and square, we did it, and that's not cool at all. And so I'm trying to say, we do not have to just replay the same negative script over and over in our world on Earth and then bring it into space. That's totally what we're not supposed to do. There are energetic firewalls designed by the great conductor-composer to prevent that from happening. And the idea is, if you need a clank metal spaceship to fly off the surface of your planet, like the conquistadors put themselves into a wooden ship and they sailed across the ocean, if you need an actual physical ship to sail across the ocean of, the space up there and go to a new planet, you ain't ready to go to a new planet. You're clearly not sensitive enough in terms of how to meet other organisms and how to interact with them ethically. Because if you do that, if you're like, hey, might makes right, it's fine for me to walk around squashing whatever I want with my big giant feet, then you're pretty much saying, I don't mind if someone squashes me with their big giant foot. And guess what? That has already happened. This planet got squashed by a big giant foot about 10 or 20,000 years ago, and we have all been suffering the profound negative consequences of that ever since. So I never will tell you, oh, this horrible thing happened without giving you the solution. The solution is the flying rainbow lasagna. Flying rainbow lasagna is a very funny word for a very profound concept that is basically non-duality, because the basic concept of good versus evil, almost every little tiny child, well, when they begin to learn about the world and they begin to, be able to express themselves, and they ask, Mommy, Daddy, if God is real and God is good, why is there good and evil in the world? And this is the real answer, is that there are divergent destinations in terms of achieving unity consciousness. And the flying rainbow lasagna has two different points or vertices, convergence points, where all of these timelines come together. And it's really the same point, but it is oscillating back and forth so fast that it's as if it's in two places at the same time. And it has different qualities, different behavioral qualities when it is in those two different positions. Just like your right eye and your left eye present slightly different views of reality to your brain and system of perception. So in one position, that convergence point is the point of all energy. It's the source. It's all energy, all time, all awareness, everything overlapping, everything that could possibly ever exist is there. And in the other position that it is in, it is a state of total entropy. If the first position is total energy, and that means it is everything going as fast as it possibly can go. Fast, 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 and hot, hot, hot. Lots and lots and lots of molecular movement. Molecules jumping all over the place. If we have the complementary state of matter, it would be cold, cold, cold. As I described to you before, that Bose-Einstein condensate, this super dense form of matter, wherein all of the molecular motion is removed, all of the heat is removed, all of the consciousness is removed, because consciousness is a form of energy. And what is achieved is just matter that has no energy or almost no energy. And that form of matter also achieves unity consciousness, where everything acts as one. And the mindset of a being that is experiencing unity consciousness, it mentally thinks this thought, I am God. So there are different pathways to divinity. There are different pathways to have that moment of realization where one realizes that one is God. One pathway is achieving a state of total energy. And this is the pathway that I am taking and that many others here are also quite visibly taking. We are accreting light, getting together more energy, more light, more awareness, more consciousness. And we do that by cultivating ourselves internally and eating food. Food is an emotional experience. If I eat a piece of a cow, I'm literally eating a piece of the emotional experience of that cow. Or if I eat an avocado, I'm eating a piece of the emotional experience of a tree. And I understand that some of my listening audience are vegans, and I do not mean to offend you when I say this. However, all of the food that we eat contains consciousness. And therefore, in order for us to stay alive in this physical level of reality and vitality, some other being at this level has to die so that we can eat it and put it inside of ourselves. That is love and acceptance, to accept that. And what we can do while we are at this level and while we are transforming into being light eaters is to honor our food by, first of all, creating a broadcast, like a real-time broadcast of what the sensations are of eating that food. Because that food is all light. The avocado came from sunlight. Sunlight came inside of the tree. The tree thought the consciousness idea all year long, I'm going to create this avocado, which is literally the potential for life for a new tree. So if you are a totally ethical vegan, you understand that you are cutting short the life of a potential tree by eating that avocado. There's really no way to get past this. And I love you vegans, and I'm not criticizing you at all. I am simply stating the logical truth that life force energy is what sustains us. And right now we're in this body structure that uses intermediaries, plants and animals, that we grind up with our mouth parts and ferment in the cauldron of our bellies using our partners of 3 to 5 trillion microbes in order to be alive. And that's part of being in this beautiful symphony of life. So what we need to do, if we recognize how are we treating the other beings that we are consuming? That is a big thing. Like what you send out comes back to you. So I would only want to eat animals and plants that lived in a state of freedom and vitality when they were alive, and then painlessly and instantaneously were killed so that I could then eat them and put them in my belly and I could be alive, because that is what I would wish to experience. If I were going to be eaten, I would want to live my life in a state of total freedom and vitality, and then painlessly, instantaneously be eaten by a larger entity. Let me also clarify this. I am not part of the harvest agenda. When I use the word ascension, what I am actually referring to is achieving a new spiritual state. We don't have to leave the planet. We don't have to leave our bodies. We don't have to die. We don't have to get rid of our bodies. We don't have to all be crucified like Jesus in order to think that we are free. What we do need to do is transform our consciousness and transform our relationship with matter. So objective materialism says there is a barrier between your mind and matter. Matter is just its own thing, doing its own thing, and it doesn't matter what you think. You're not making matter behave differently with your thoughts. But quantum physics tells us that observership has a huge impact on matter, and we know this to be true. And the new state that we are moving into, this birth of a new dimension, is a dimension where matter responds instantaneously to consciousness. And we begin with our own physical bodies. So the chemistry and molecular behavior of your own body responds to your own consciousness. Your ability to be conscious and aware is based on those chemical and molecular processes that are happening at the level of your neurotransmitters. So literally, your thoughts are the direct result of molecular behavior. And as we begin to even transcend quantum physics and get into this higher level of reality, because quantum physics teaches us that matter and energy are in constant dualistic opposition, but the Flying Rainbow Lasagna combines matter and energy. It is like saying the world of matter that gives birth to us, it's our mother. It's not just the world of matter, like dead, inert, stupid molecules that bounce around and don't know what they're doing. They're actually conscious. They're actually aware. They're actually doing a dance. They have an agenda. They have their own ideas. If you respect life on that level, then you understand that you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to create this chemical reaction for my own personal convenience. You understand, wow, this chemical reaction that you're creating for your own personal convenience is actually like creating a civilization to the molecules, and you are having a huge impact on their civilization. The key to freedom, the way that we get free of all of this, how do we have to no longer eat plants and animals? How do we get to live in the state of being consciously connected to the stellar network so that we don't have to use chloroplasts as an intermediary? Chloroplasts, chlorophyll, catches light, photons for us, and turns it into sugars and starches that we can eat with our bellies. What if we can change our bodies? What if we can transform our DNA by doing the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, and then we can consciously ingest light directly from the sun, instead of using intermediaries like trees and avocados and cows and rabbits and whatever else humans eat around here. And that is the goal. That is the rectification of our current situation that we are moving into. And like I said, when I'm a walk-in or abstraction that came in here in 2001, when I first came into this body, I thought, oh, like I'm just going to be eating pure light. This is going to be great. I didn't understand that we were in transition. And I also thought that the transition would take a lot less time, because I've been here for about 16 years. I'm like tapping my foot, a bit exasperated. It's been a long time. So we are in this process of transition. Don't be exasperated. Love ourselves and understand we've been laboring to deliver the baby for a long time, but the baby is finally here. We're giving birth to the new state of consciousness, and we are cultivating ourselves and doing the inner preparation so that we will be creating a beautiful world, not a beautiful world based on fear and trauma. Thank you.